Yo, welcome everybody. Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to TCR Trinity Competitive Racing.
Well, TCR TJ is the Season 13 Golden Class Champion for Trinity Competitive Racing.
Oh, let's go, dude! Yes!
Jabbar on the podium! He's on it by a 10! Gentlemen, side by side through one.
And silent, and Seabreeze gets a half spin.
Let's fucking go!
Wheel bumping.
DRS enable, let's do it.
And Captain Blade battling it out for position. Captain Blade.
Ickle, what the
Then McChicken goes around and he also makes
rewind down the front straight. Oh my god. I gotta check the heart rate.
Why do we do this? Because of nights like this.
Yo, welcome everybody to TCR Trinity Competitive Racing, and welcome to episode 4 of the Racing Debrief, TCR's podcast where we combine the world of e-racing, sim racing, and TCR with real-life motorsports and Formula One, a true racing enthusiast's listen. I'm your host, C. Freeze. Alongside me is my co-host, professional, and producer behind the scenes, D'Angelo. We are recording on July 31st, 2022, and let's get into it. So, another episode which falls on a race, Formula One Grand Prix weekend. This was the Hungary Grand Prix, which we will get into. Obviously, some news broke out earlier on to kickstart this entire weekend off. A little bit of some sad news. Sebastian Vettel announced his retirement, and that'll kick things off. But what did you guys think? Well, firstly, welcome, and also, what did you think of the breaking news of the 4-time world champion?
Yeah, to be honest, I love Seb. I think everybody loves Sebastian Vettel, and maybe he's changed a lot since his Red Bull days, and the Finger Man was his nickname. I was sad to hear him retire, as I'm sure everybody was as well. Sad to hear Kimi Räikkönen retire last season, and now Vettel. It's like these old school drivers are now, moving on, and Vettel wants to spend more time with his family and all that. And I think just in recent times, he's been a bit more outspoken about certain things and aspects about Formula One, and I kind of feel like he knew it was kind of his time to kind of go. And there's probably a whole other topic about Aston Martin, which we could get into, but I don't think he really would have succeeded at Aston Martin. And it's not just him. I think it was the whole team and, the person in charge, Lawrence Stroll, who at Williams and then at Racing Point just wasn't really that positive influence that the team needed, and so I didn't really think it was going to be a bright future. So I think it was a right time for him to step out. But yeah, I'm going to miss him, and I do hope that he comes back in some form or fashion, maybe as the future FIA director or some sort of steward or anything like that, because he obviously has just a good view on a lot of things Formula One. So that's my little take.
D'Angelo, what did you think of the retirement news?
Very surprised. I feel like, because I know that I think it was last year someone asked him a question at a press conference asking if he would race up into 2026, and he said no. And you kind of knew that his time was coming to an end, but I always thought his last season would probably be 2023 or 2024. So it just kind of shocked me that he did it so soon. So it was very, very interesting, but one of the all-time greats, and it's just sad to see him go.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's funny because I was on the night. Actually, I guess the night that which would be the day, with the time zone difference, that Sebastian Vettel, he made his Instagram account, which I didn't know about. So I was with some league buddies doing some some racing and stuff on the PC side of things. And someone said, "Oh yeah, did you? He's got an Instagram account now." I'm like, "Whoa!" Like, Why would he go on to social media? I'm like, he's the last F1 driver to join social media, and I was kind of sat there and thinking, like, well, why would he? I'm trying to put two and two together. I didn't necessarily say, "Oh, this means he's like putting a retirement speech out." But it kind of makes sense. Like the next day, I wasn't really shocked. I was kind of like, oh, okay, that makes sense. That's why he made his Instagram account, because not only to post his retirement speech on his platform, because he was the first person to release it, but I think it's more of, all right, once F1 is done, I'm going to start to share what he wants to share, because obviously when you're in Formula One, you're in the spotlight all the time. Yeah, it's the pinnacle of motorsport, and you get a lot of media attention. He got a lot when he was at Ferrari, I guess more so, but even Aston Martin, all the teams get a lot of media attention, and I think some F1 drivers might miss that. So that social media is a good platform for them to use their voice and following that they've made and created, with their career. And I think, he might have just made it for that retirement speech and that's it. But I feel like he'll be posting quite actively on whatever messages he wants to send through Instagram and maybe one day Twitter or other things. Um, but that kind of makes sense. I'm really like upset. It hit me because now I didn't see all of Vettel's career, but for me, I saw all of his Ferrari days and obviously Aston Martin. Red Bull and Toro Rosso's not really in the sport, but I've seen a lot of previous footage and stuff like that. Um, but when I first came in, he was the first person I don't know, for some reason I just gravitated towards Ferrari and then gravitated towards him and was the first person I picked in the video game. He was the first person I went to. And it's like, man, the time really has flown by from 2015 to now 2022, and he's going to be leaving the sport. I can't really picture him not on the grid for me, because I know a lot of others too, but that one's tough to swallow. Is his retirement? But I'm not really shocked. Like it was the end of his 2-year contract, and you knew there was going to be either an extension of a year or two, maybe 3, but I wouldn't think he would sign too far in advance, or retirement. And it was just kind of like same thing. Kimi Raikkonen had the same exit strategy. He was from Ferrari, then he went down to a lower back market team, which kind of looked promising, but not as much as Aston Martin, because Alfa Romeo was more of a title sponsor. He did what did he do? 3 years, Kimi?
Yeah, he did 3.
So he did 1 extra year at Alfa Romeo and then left. But I think his contract, Kimi's, was a 3-year deal, or was it 2 and then an extension?
It was a 2 with a 1-year extension. Yeah.
So yeah, so he had a similar exit, but I think it's good for him to call it. I think we'll look back in the next 5 years or so and see if this was a good choice or not for him. Because Aston Martin obviously seems pretty promising. They're getting the facilities. They want to be winning in the next 5 years. They're already a year and a half in. We'll see if that success comes. But I feel like he's not a Fernando Alonso. Alonso will sit in McLaren how many years of embarrassing back marker moments waiting for that program to finally kick in, which it never really did. At least when he was there. But all those years, you can just imagine just sitting in the back, unproductive. Vettel is not that person. He wants to be in competitive equipment, winning, competing, and he had 2 years in non-competitive equipment, and he's like, yeah, this ain't for me. So I'm happy. He's like, all
had
right,
enough. He's had enough. And yeah.
he knows his limits, but well, I think he'll be definitely missed. But I think there's a good young generation coming up with Lando and Leclerc, Russell. Verstappen's here already performing, and all the new talent, Gasly. Uh, that those guys will be around for a good long while. And Vettel's had a great career. All the way back, winning that race with Toro Rosso, which was the first win of that team. And then he went on to get the first one for Red Bull as well, right?
I think so. What was the first win? It was 2009. And I think Vettel was there, right? 2009. I don't know what race, but I think he did get the first Red Bull win. He didn't. It must have been Mark Webber because Mark Webber was there since 2007 or 2006 or something, or maybe even 2008.
Fact checking.
But yeah. There you go, D'Angelo. There we go. But yeah, he's had a good career, and I'm happy that he's fulfilled his dream of becoming world champion, just not one time but 4 times.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I have mixed opinions about Vettel, but as a person, you can't fault him with anything. Pretty much, he's such a genuine person, and what he's done in the past few years, like starting the little beehive thing, trying to save the bees and trying to be, support the women in Formula One and standing with Lewis Hamilton on the Black Lives Matter. Like he's stood for so much stuff that it's really hard to fault him on that kind of thing. But the race driver Vettel is, for me, kind of another, I guess, topic or something, especially from his Red Bull days and his Ferrari days and stuff.
Yeah, and also he got the first Aston Martin podium as well. So maybe he'll
Yeah.
get that first win. I doubt it, but you never know. We've had crazy races. But and also that time where he back on the beehives and stuff. That one race where he went into the stands picking up all garbage
Oh
that
yeah.
everyone left. I think honestly, if you want to make headlines, he should really ask the entire grid to do that after a Grand Prix. I think that'd be really cool. For all the drivers or team to help out, because you don't really, it's not really their job or duty, but it's doing a really good thing, helping out whoever is supposed to be cleaning all that up, and yeah, he's a good character. We're gonna miss him for sure. But now this kind of leaves Aston Martin in a vacancy, really, because they were thinking, and obviously they knew this was a chance because they only signed a 2-year deal. But I know Aston Martin would want Sebastian Vettel back in the seat for another 3-4 years alongside Stroll, and that would be their lineup. But they were looking for someone who would be there to seek out that Aston Martin success story in the next 5-year plan, or more or shorter. And Vettel only did 2 years of that. Stroll's going to be there unless something crazy happens to where he's not in, that team. But now there's got to be a replacement driver. Now this is interesting because there's a lot of promise here. There's a few drivers that I think are very likely, and then there's some other left field options that they can go with. But I think they need someone with a little bit of experience and someone who is truly going to seek out an X amount plan, however many years, maybe 3, 4, or 5 years, rather than just a sign off for 1 year and keep that like a revolving door. So for me, I think when I was thinking of a replacement, the first person that popped in my mind is someone who's already on the team, which is Nico Hulkenberg. He's 34 years old, which I had just checked. And he'll be turning 35 August 19th. So he is a little bit older, kind of, but he's got that experience. He has been the replacement driver for when Vettel, earlier this season, when Vettel didn't make the first two races. I think he knows the team well. He's been with Racing Point and Aston Martin, obviously. He hasn't been in the team full time, so I don't, he hasn't really been a current driver, but I think he's quick enough to, get up to it quite quickly. I mean, you look at Magnussen, who came back after missing a year or so, and it took him a few weeks to get physically right, but now he's performing, nicely at Haas. So I think Nico Hulkenberg would be a good option if they wanted to.
Yeah, I was going to say my first pick to replace Vettel would be Nico Hulkenberg. He's reserved many times the past few seasons, due to COVID or not him having COVID, but other drivers having COVID and him stepping in. Racing Point, Aston Martin, and he's a very, very quick driver. A lot of people were, thought it was wrong for him to be outed of F1 because he had all the talent and he just wasn't able to secure a drive. But I'm sure that would probably be Lawrence Stroll's first option as a replacement for Seb. Another person I was thinking of might be Gasly, but I think he might
Yes.
have. I think he's just signed a new contract with AlphaTauri. But it's honestly, it's more of a lateral move.
2023 contract, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. But he could also, exit out of that team and have an exit clause. But honestly, it's like a sideways move. It's kind of like when, what was it when Sainz went from Renault, right, to
Renault
McLaren?
to McLaren, yeah.
Yeah, where Ricardo went from Renault to McLaren. It's like these lateral moves, you're not really making any progress. To be honest, I'm, probably one of the people, or it's probably an unpopular opinion, but I don't think Aston Martin is going to be at the front anytime soon, if ever. I just don't think they're going to be able to do it. Like, yeah, you can throw money at the team and throw money at getting engineers from other teams and facilities and this and that. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think Lawrence Stroll, the person in charge of that team who, bought Racing Point and, bought Aston Martin and all that stuff, I just don't think it doesn't have the right mindset. He thinks money is going to win. Probably not going to happen, especially nowadays with the budget cap and all that. Until he or his son gets out of that team, I don't think they're going to go anywhere near the front. All they like to do is copy other teams.
They do like to copy.
That's been pretty obvious from Racing Point and even Aston Martin this year with their first major upgrade. It was like, hold up, we've seen that car before, and it was the Red Bull. So yeah, I mean, I really want Aston to win. They're a great team, a lot of pedigree. The brand is great. It's a high class brand.
Absolutely.
The paint job is really good.
I love the look.
Oh, I love the look, yeah. But it's just, yeah, I don't think it's really going to work. And, maybe Vettel saw that. And, kudos to him if he did. Because I don't want Vettel to stay in F1 too long to where his reputation and kind of, goes out the window. Because he's such a popular driver. So I'm actually glad that he announced his retirement. Because I can kind of see where Aston was going. After so much promise this year, and so far they've been at the bottom of the standings in FP1, FP2, FP3. Qualifying, they've been bottom 5 consistently, and then in the race they score some points here and there, but it's like there's something fundamentally wrong with that team, and I don't want Vettel to have to suffer through that.
Yeah, no, that's definitely fair. I feel like I want Aston Martin to do good because I do like the brand itself, and I like the whole look of it. I hated Racing Point. Such a stupid name. I didn't like Force India when it went all pink on me. I liked regular Force India, but I didn't like these years of transition period. I didn't like it. But once they rebranded to Aston Martin, they're getting these facilities, a big promise. They have the money. It seems great on paper. It's going to take some time, but I want them to do good. But if they do succeed in the upcoming years, I'm going to feel a little like, ah, man, what if Vettel did stay? And what if he maybe didn't, I'm not saying championship, but what if he got back on the podium again and got winning again in Aston Martin? But then on the flip side, if they don't succeed, Vettel's move to retire is going to be genius. He got out when he should have gotten out, and he didn't stay at McLaren like Alonso for X amount of years, sitting at the back. Not that that dismantled his, his legacy. We all know in racing it's all about the equipment, but I'm interested to see how this will go. Now, there's a few other options I think of also to replacement. So so Hogmar was in number one. Gasly, I thought was also a good opportunity, but he is contracted in 2023. Although the contracts in Formula One really don't matter. Sometimes there's ways around it because Gasly's kind of stuck at AlphaTauri unless he does go to Red Bull. Seeing what Perez might do, but Gasly and AlphaTauri is great, but AlphaTauri's at a certain ceiling, and Gasly. That's why Sainz left Toro Rosso. That's why Albon, well, he eventually got out. Now he's in the William program. AlphaTauri is good, like for Sonoda and other younger drivers. They have to prove themselves and keep proving. Once they get to the top team, they need to prove. And once you don't prove yourself anymore, boom, you get cut. So I wonder if usually don't get a second chance in the top Red Bull team. That's why I think Gasly would be smart to say, all right, I'm going to take that hole. Another driver that I thought was actually quite a good option is Daniel Ricciardo. He's obviously got the race winning experience. McLaren and them. I know if he does move, it's going to be, man, he moves every 2 years.
Yeah.
But if he does go to, now I know Lance Stroll is, the son and everything, but Vettel was the number one driver at Aston Martin because of what he brought to the team. Ricardo, I think, can beat Stroll. I don't think Stroll's crazy good. I think Stroll's a good driver. I think he deserves some credit. But I think Ricardo can kind of make Aston Martin sort of his team, even though it's, the son of the owner of Stroll. But I think Ricardo makes sense. Now another few that maybe I don't really see. Some people were saying Alonso to get out of Alpine, which I don't really see happening because I feel like he would just have to revamping another team again, and that's going to take more time. He's already been in Alpine for 2 years, so why leave that progression? And Aston Martin's behind Alpine anyways. You also have Sebastian Vettel, I think I guess there was some reports that he was trying to get Mick Schumacher into Aston Martin, kind of vouching for him, which is weird because he's in the Ferrari program. Then he'd be moving to Mercedes, and also Haas is a little better than Aston Martin, although you can say Aston Martin's ceiling's a little better in the long term. And then you have some rookies of, the French driver, I believe, Oscar Piastri.
Yeah, Oscar Piastri.
Possibly.
I think he'd be a good replacement, but he's with Alpine already. Like he's a young driver for them, so I don't really see him.
So I don't know what Alonso's going to do. I'm sure Alpine will want to keep Alonso, but if he does jump, let's say to Aston Martin and Oscar Piastri, then he goes to Alpine as their young driver. That could happen. You also have Nick De Vries, Mercedes reserve. You have Aston Martin, Mercedes engine, so that could be. But I feel like the Aston Martin doesn't want a driver like that. They need a little bit of experience, and that's what Seb brought. So to me, Hulkenberg, Gasly, Ricciardo, Alonso, those drivers are more likely, in my opinion. But I think Hulkenberg, I think he's such a good driver. I think he will get the nod. I think he's going to get the nod. That's my final decision. I think Nico Hulkenberg will replace Vettel, and I think Hulkenberg wants to do it because why else would you stick around as a reserve driver if you're Nico Hulkenberg? Just because I get bored. Like no, he probably wants to come back.
Yeah, I mean, I think anybody, I mean, like any reserve driver would want to come back, but they're reserve drivers for a reason. So, yeah, we'll have to just wait and see. A lot of speculation, but
Yeah, but
yeah,
Vettel's
find out sooner than later.
his retirement really got started on the silly season because now it's musical chairs all over, and we're right at the summer break. So contracts could also be signed off on with the little off break that Formula One has. So that'll be interesting. We'll see who goes in, but I think whoever does get that seat has a good opportunity at a good team eventually. At least on paper, it looks promising. And if it does turn out, even if they kind of repeat what they did with Racing Point when Perez was there, was that 2020? Kind of competing, the team won a race. I think even that would be a little better. Maybe the P4 right under the big three, I think would be, if they could get back there, I think that would be good for Aston Martin. But obviously they want to go a lot higher. But yeah, so that is the talks of Aston Martin. We'll get into the race review of the Hungary Grand Prix. What did we think of the race? The quali was out of position. The race then was compromised. A little bit of rain threatening. No big accidents. I don't think we had one retirement at the end. Was
It
Bottas, I
was
think.
Bottas, yeah, the Alfa Romeo.
Pretty clean race besides Ricardo and Stroll getting hit, which was a little clumsy there. But apart from that, pretty clean race, good racing. And you didn't know who was going to win until towards the end.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the race. It was actually one of my favorite races this season so far, just because of the unpredictability of the tires and the strategy, and I'm really enjoying this. You can start on whatever tire you want to at the beginning of the race. I think people are like, oh well, this and that and blah blah blah. I think it's great because it really, you don't know what the other team is going to do until the tire blankets come off right before the lights go out.
Well, I'm going
And
to pause you right there because
yep.
now I have a question. Because the tire blankets have different colors on the tire blankets, so do teams they kind of do know what the other cars are, because they could just peek over the shoulder and see what tire.
No, just
you
because
can
the colors on the tire blankets doesn't mean that that's the tire that you're running.
So you think they mix them up to like,
No, it's not that it's mixed up. It's
let's put
like,
the red blankets on, and we're gonna pull it off, and it's gonna be the hards.
well, no, I mean, no, because the tire blankets they're not color coded like that. As far as I'm concerned,
Sure.
I've seen the tire blankets, like most of them are like a generic color, and that doesn't necessarily give away what the tire is. At least if I'm blind or something. But
I don't know about that. D'Angelo, go do some research on the tire blankets. I'm actually curious. I feel like they've always been, but maybe not. I don't know. But
yeah, 'cause, like
I
in
feel like if they are color coded, my thing was they should put a certain time to where they actually put their whatever tire they're going to start on, because I think if people can see what tire you're starting on, and then the teams can change their tires right up to the lights, I think it kind of defeats the purpose, because I think it'd be great if you could just show up and genuinely not know what other teams are doing besides your
well,
own
I
team.
think that's
the
what
two drivers.
happens though, because if we
I hope so.
knew what the tires were, the commentators would be telling us every single race what the teams are running before the tire blankets come off, but they don't. So, yeah, I think it's a generic color, not even a color, it's just a tire blanket. And because everybody is always so surprised when the blankets come off, which
Yeah, you
leads
might
me
be
to
right.
believe that
Usually when I
know.
start usually when I start watching, I'm in bed half asleep, so I'm still squinting. when we're on the grid.
Yeah.
So maybe I got that one wrong, but I hope it's all surprise. But go ahead. I just was curious on that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think it was good, and Russell starting on the soft tire, I think that was pretty much of a given because he wants to keep the track position, and was not surprised at all with Red Bull starting on the soft tires, trying to make up the track position as well. Was a little surprised by Hamilton not going on the soft because of their tire warm-up issues, but he actually managed quite well. He's been one of the few drivers this season that's had consistently good starts, every single race, and made up positions. Crucially got past both of the Alpines and just stuck behind Lando for a little bit. I don't really know if he got past Lando at the start, if he would have been able to have more of a chance of winning the race. Obviously, qualifying yesterday kind of prohibited him from, a chance of winning. Even if he started first or second, I still think Max would have had a chance to win, such as the pace of the Red Bull. He had Vettel and Stroll down and having some battles again, and I think ultimately Vettel got passed or was let pass through his team. And yeah, it was a really good race. The gaps weren't really that big. We had the Ferrari strategy again, just some really odd calls, and it was pretty obvious as a spectator seeing
Oh man.
Haas and the Alpines go to the hard tire, and it just was not working. I mean, anybody, like my cat, I don't have a cat, but my cat would have seen that and said, "Don't put on the hard tires." And then Ferrari's like, "Nope, let's just put on the hard tires." So I don't really know what they're looking at, or if at all. I just don't understand. And Leclerc was pretty vocal about it today after the race. So I think he's finally getting fed up with it. Rightly so. We're about halfway through the season, and he's finally getting fed up with it. So maybe too late on that, but it is what it is. Sainz got put on the soft tire. I think it was just way too early. His tires died off at the end. I didn't think the Ferrari had that great of tire management. I think their deg was a bit higher than they expected it to be. Mercedes just seemed to get better and better and better as the race went on, especially Hamilton, which proves that his race pace is always a force to be reckoned with, no matter the situation. Max and Lewis are still class of the field, and I am extremely excited for the triple header coming up after the summer break.
Yeah, we gotta wait a few weeks though, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, yeah. I was gonna say
Yeah.
I wanna see these races, but yeah, we'll get 3 in a row. We just have to wait 3 weeks to do it.
Yep. Yeah,
No big
that's
deal.
good. So coming in, I think even on the last episode of the racing debrief, we were doing kind of predictions on Hungary, and I was saying that I kind of thought that Mercedes and McLaren would kind of struggle because I thought in slower speeds, kind of more heavy downforce tracks, they're not as strong. And I thought you might see some resurgence of the AlphaTauri, maybe the Haas, and some other teams and kind of almost a flip in the midfield. But I was pretty much completely wrong. It was pretty much the same teams we've had when we at France to an extent. With Mercedes and McLaren doing quite well, Alpine double points well within. And going into the qualifying, now I didn't watch it live. I was able to watch the highlights. So coming into the weekend, I'm like, oh, Russell got pole. I'm like, all right. So the Red Bulls had problems. They were down the field. I'm like, all right, Hamilton had a problem too. I'm like, all right, Russell's on pole. Ferrari's not quite there. So I'm thinking, all right, Mercedes seem decent, but I still think the Red Bulls Max is just going to be really quick. And I was coming in thinking last night about the race, and I was like, man, who's going to win this race? Even though Max started, 10th? I
Yeah.
still picked him, and I was really confident. Like, I am not shocked he went out and won today. I picked him. It wasn't like a crazy call. It's just looking on paper. Ferrari, if they were able to get out qualified by Russell, and I still don't think the Mercedes is all there. They're able to compete there and thereabouts. and they are improving each week. But I still think Red Bull and Max, that car is just, it's a good combination. So even them starting back in 10th, I'm like, they have a great shot. And I was not shocked at all. It was kind of, how many times have we seen in the past years Hamilton start outside, take a penalty, even start even much further back and come through and win the race or be in contention of it. So it was the same thing with Max. He was just starting 10th. He had a great opportunity. And the Mercedes were a lot stronger than I thought. I think this is the first time this season we had actually 6 drivers. Brundle was saying 6. I was saying 5. I think Perez wasn't really there this weekend. So I would give it both Mercedes, both Ferraris, and Max really contending for that win, because you really didn't know who was going to win. I was pretty sure Perez wasn't going to come out and win from 6th.
Yeah.
He was a little bit off the pace as well. But you had Hamilton in 5th for a while, competing and doing the same laps as the top drivers. And there was a moment Max was with Lewis on track, and Lewis was thinking about overtaking, but Max, I was having flashbacks of them last season. Like, oh, come on, let's keep it clean, boys. Let's keep
your
it
heads
clean.
on. Keep your heads on.
And then I was going through, I'm like, all right, this seems pretty good. So I'm like, surely once Leclerc got past Russell, I'm like, oh, that's it. They're going to go through and Russell's going to fall back, because I think the Ferrari is still a little bit better than Mercedes, but I still think Max had that car. And then going through, I see Max pitted, and then Leclerc pitted to cover him off.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
But Max was sitting a few positions behind. Now I get why, because the undercut's quite big.
Yeah, the undercut was pretty big. Well, depending on what tire you put on. If you put on the hard tire, the undercut's not too big. But
Yes,
yeah, I think that's
as we know. But I'm thinking, well, why? So Ferrari, I think, they're thinking about the championship so much they're forgetting about their own self. They're like, oh, Max is pitting, we have to pit. Like, oh, he's our championship rival. Like, Leclerc's also the rival. We have to pit him now. We have to beat Verstappen. Opposed for like just doing your own race, thinking what you have, and doing it. And I'm pretty sure my orangutan. Not that I have an orangutan, but if I had an orangutan, he could tell you not to put on those hard tires. I don't know who decided to say, yeah, the hard tires. Let's put the hard tires on. That's a good idea. You already had both Alpines on the hard tires struggling. And I think if they went the other route, they could have still been a little bit more competitive. Maybe beat. I think Lando was able to beat the Alpines, but I think they would have been possibly able to beat the McLaren. And you also had the Haas's put the hard, so like everything turned out like you had all that information, and they kind of shot themselves in the foot, because Leclerc started on the medium tire, then he went to another medium tire, which means if rain doesn't come, you need to put on either the soft or the hard. So I don't know why that second medium stint was so short. I know why they pitted, because they wanted to cover off Max, but you didn't get to the lap number you needed to get to. Hamilton extended, and then he put the softs on at the end. So Hamilton did what? No, but he did. What did he?
He had about 5 laps newer soft tires than Sainz. Sainz pitted, I think, on lap 49 or lap 50. Hamilton pitted on lap 55. So Hamilton essentially did 15 laps on the soft tire. Well, actually, minus that, it was about 13 because of the VSC, which I think 13 laps on a soft tire, light fuel at the end, was probably the perfect strat. Sainz just put on the soft tire a little bit too early, plus the high deg of the Ferrari. Just not a great combination.
Well, what did Hamilton start on the race? Soft or medium?
Medium tires.
Okay, so he went medium, soft. The only thing is he extended that second middle stint, which I think was the correct thing. Now, if you start on the soft, it's quite easy. You do medium. So I don't know what
Even then though, the soft, medium, medium is going to have a higher deg, and it's going to be, I think, a slower race than the medium, medium, soft, because of you have soft tires at the very beginning, like Russell had, but the fuel, you have heavy fuel, and Russell is
Right.
really trying to control the pace at the front. My question was, um, if the Ferraris and Hamilton both started on the same medium tire, how is it Ferrari was so much slower and they ended up so far behind Hamilton at the end?
Yeah. Well, I
You know?
think with Sainz's case, like you said it earlier, they pitted too early to put on that soft tire at the end where it just fell off. So I think if he did similar strat to Hamilton, it would have been there or thereabouts. I still think Hamilton probably would have beat him because the Mercedes was rapid at the end. But I think the big difference between Sainz and Hamilton, it was the tires. You can see to the final corner, Hamilton almost was pushing Sainz, and he was passed before, like right as soon as you put the DRS on, Hamilton was past Sainz. So I think they misplayed that a little bit. Now Sainz, I heard him in an interview, and he was saying that now I don't know if he really knew about Leclerc. I mean, I think at some point he found out, oh, he put the hards on. But I think there was an interview I was listening to, and Sainz was saying that it doesn't matter the strategy if the car is slow, which is true. And in his race, I think the strategy could have just been tweaked a little bit, and they could have maybe had a better shot at the podium. But Leclerc was the strategy was just completely wrong. I
Yeah.
mean, if Sainz, if you come a little bit earlier and the deg, it was higher deg than you might have thought on the calculations, you can kind of be like, oh, all right, we miscalculated a little bit. But at least we were going onto the same right tire that we were going to go onto. Not, all right, let's put on the hard tire and just completely fall off the face of the earth and be very uncompetitive and not even compete for a podium when they were trying to compete for the win. He ended up finishing what, sixth or fifth?
Or what for Sainz?
No, Leclerc.
No, Leclerc finished P6.
P6. He
Yeah,
was
it was so bad.
oh. And then I heard in the post race in the cool down room, Hamilton, he's like, he put the hards on.
And then they all started laughing. It's like, well, yeah, like who in their right mind would put on a hard tire, like after seeing Haas and Alpine, especially Alpine, because they were the first ones to pit for the hard tire. Oh God, it was like a huge facepalm moment, and I think they were just having a pretty comical reaction there, thinking, did they seriously put on the hard tires? Like, how many more mistakes can they do? It's just, and Max is just laughing his way to the trophy room because
Yeah.
he's already locked up the drivers' championship for the most part. I mean, I don't want to speak too soon, but still got the second half of the season to go. But it is so ominous for Ferrari, and I don't see how they're gonna come back. I think they need to focus their attention on Mercedes now. That's my opinion.
Well, that's the thing. Mercedes are back pretty much.
I don't think they're back. They're quite close, very close.
Yeah, well, I mean, they did get pole and they did get double podium this week and last week, and they've been very much, I would say, since Canada, starting to really ramp up their speed. Like they're getting closer and closer to the mark. Now, I agree. I don't think they have the quickest car. I think it just kind of worked out. Red Bull had problems. That's why they got pole. Otherwise, it would have been Max. Ferrari's strategy and Perez starting back freed up a few positions to where they were able to get second and third. But I think they're very close. I think they're going to come back. I don't know about Belgium, if they come back at Belgium really good, but there's some other tracks I think Mercedes can really do good at. But I was actually what I was saying with the tire. So if I'm Leclerc, now, I don't know what communication they had. I don't think they showed any during the race. I'm sure you can find their communication radio after the fact. But I feel like if Vettel was still in Ferrari, which I feel like Vettel has done before, he would flat out say, "No, I'm not. I'm not. Don't put me on the hard tire." Like he would literally, like Alonso too. Like these veteran drivers, Hamilton too. all the time.
Yeah, he would always question
He's
Bono.
questioning and telling the team, "No, we're not doing that. That's the wrong strategy. Put me on this," and then they rethink and they come back like, "Okay, extend or do this or whatever." I feel like since we talked about Vettel earlier, I feel like Vettel would have said, "Hell no, we ain't putting no hards on." Alonso, Hamilton, same thing. They'd probably question the call. And now, obviously, Alonso had to put on the hards because they were like the first people to do it. So they really didn't know at that time. But Ferrari did have information on that call, and they still made that call. So I don't know. It's crazy. I don't know how many more times they're going to be doing it, but
I mean,
I
we're
know
used to it now, so it's maybe not as painful for the second half of the season if they keep on doing it. We'll be just used to it by then, unfortunately.
I know Red Bull's really good at strategy. Mercedes is really good too. Um, I think for many years they kind of maybe some of their strategies kind of got saved because their car was really good, so they didn't really need to be perfect on strategy. But Mercedes and Red Bull almost in and out each week. They're putting up really good strategies. Ferrari, I don't know. That's just not who they are. And they don't have a quick car. So if you don't have a quick car and you don't have good strategies, you're not going to win many races.
It's true.
So they got to think of something and what they want to do. But there's got to be some change. And honestly, if this were to happen, we are going to summer break. Man, if you're going to make a change at the end of the season, make the change now. If you're going to get, whether I'm not saying it's Bonato, I'm not saying maybe it's another guy behind the scenes, whoever that person is, or whoever the people are, the management, make the change now because it's not working now. So why have another a bad half a season? You know, your team's underperforming, making big mistakes. And it's not just because it's Ferrari and everything is blown out in proportion. These are simple, like common sense calls. Like these are calls that we would make during league racing. And we don't even have engineers and all that. I mean, if you call Jeff and Mark or whoever they're called now. But they're smarter, I would think, than Ferrari. But we have to make those decisions too, what tires to and not to go on and all that in the moment. And we don't even have all the data. They have all the data and they still make the wrong call.
Mind blowing, mind blowing. But this race, it did really set up an exciting second half of the season. The floor, I guess, stringent, um, not testing, but they're making sure that everybody's following the regulations. That comes into play in Spa, and I know I've been talking about it the past few episodes, but that's really intriguing me. There's not been a lot of talk about it recently because the focus has been on the Ferrari strategy or lack thereof. But the
So
whole
explain this Belgium regulation thing, because I actually am not too keen in on what this is, and maybe others listening might not know.
well, it came into play. It like the topic really came up after the Baku race, whenever the cars were bouncing like crazy. In particular, it was the Mercedes, who was running a very stiffly sprung car, and they've been vocal about it, as of other drivers. But it was majority of drivers after the race who brought it up to the FIA. People said, "Oh, it's just Mercedes trying to get performance advantage, this and that." Okay, if they are, great. That's what Formula One is. You exploit the rules, this and that. But it's a safety concern too. I don't think we've seen the porpoising as much recently because the tracks have been a lot smoother than at the beginning of the season when we had a lot of the street hybrid type circuits and stuff. So it's been maybe kind of a hidden thing. Who knows for the rest of the season if that'll come back into play or not? But as a grounds for safety, I think something has to be done. And then plus, it was the FIA who actually discovered that teams. It's more to do with it's not the floor flexing per se because the Mercedes floor was flexing the most out of anybody, causing the porpoising. The floor has to be stiff, but it's more about there are certain points on the floor and under the floor where the wooden plank is that was flexing more than the so-called 2 millimeter tolerance. And so, I think the FIA, they're going to tighten down on adding more points of measurement around the floor, so that you can't kind of, I guess, not cheat, but exploit the floor flex or the wooden plank flex. So I guess in a sense, the Ferrari and the Red Bull have found a way that the wooden floor, like the back of the plank, is moving and kind of disappearing as the car goes faster. But when the FIA tests the car, the wooden plank is still within the 2 millimeter like flex tolerance thing. But they've found a little loophole to where I guess the wooden plank is flexing more than the 2 millimeters allowed, which causes it allows better traction, better grip. It's kind of helps the whole porpoising thing. There's a few articles on it from about a month ago that I've read. I can probably link it. So, but McLaren, Mercedes, a few other teams were kind of surprised that this has been possibly happening, and that may be why Ferrari has this huge performance advantage on literally every track you go to. It doesn't matter what type of track it is. Ferrari is always able to be super fast right out of the box. And even Red Bull was kind of surprised. It's like, yeah, the Ferrari is just really good everywhere, and there's no car in the grid that's like that. And their side pod design doesn't really point to that being a huge advantage. So teams were kind of wondering, it's like, how are they so fast everywhere? Their engine isn't that much quicker, if at all, than Red Bull. Like, how are they achieving this with, and they do allow some porpoising, right? Like earlier in the season, Ferrari was pretty bad, but it would stop immediately as they put on the brakes and entered a corner, whereas the Mercedes and other teams would porpoise through the corner, into the corner. And that's also a hint to where, or a hint to that, the wooden plank is disappearing, and it just allows more grip through the corner, and especially out of the corner too, because the car isn't bouncing as much. It's better able to put down the traction. Probably a very, very poor way of saying it, but maybe we'll try to link some articles and stuff. But that's sort of the thing leading into the Spa, and it was supposed to happen in France. And Red Bull in particular and Ferrari were very nervous because they would have to make these floor changes very, very rapidly and possibly lose a lot of performance. And then there was a lot of complaints, and so the FIA pushed it back to Spa, which is literally a month and a half after the French Grand Prix. And a few teams like Mercedes and McLaren were a little upset that it was going to take them so long. But the FIA wanted, Red Bull and Ferrari and other teams or just all of the teams, to safely develop a floor or safely make any changes and allow them to make changes before this new technical directive has come into play. And this is
wow.
It reminds me a lot of 2006 with the mass damper that Renault had the first half of the season. Technical directive came in after the summer break, and then suddenly Ferrari was the team to beat all the way to the last race in Brazil, and that's when Schumacher came back and almost won the 2006 championship. So to me, this is extremely similar in that sense, to where the tables could turn entirely, and we could actually see Mercedes getting 1-2s and 1-3s every single race from now until the end of the season, which would be a huge upset in the championship.
Wow, so Mr. Professor Professional was teaching there, and I don't know how much I retained, but that sounds like great news. No, I followed. I followed, but yeah. So maybe that's the turning point. I really think this off season, I mean this summer break, with now this explanation of the wooden plank coming to Belgium in 3 weeks' time or so, I think that is all, everything that Mercedes needs is just maybe a little bit fine tune of the regulation, 3 weeks to fine tune their car, because they're still upgrading that car. They're still upgrading it, and come back with maybe an upgrade in Belgium or upgrade in other races, and come back and just dominate. Now, I'm not a Mercedes fan, but I do like a team that just does things well in a dominant factor because it's hard to do those things. So I can appreciate when a team can go out there and win. And let's not remember they did win last season. They got the constructors title. So they are your former champions in that regard. And if they come back, and I said it last episode, if they come back after this arrangement of the rules getting tweaked, coming after the summer break, and go all out hammer time, I think we're in for a treat. Because Ferrari, we already hit the decline. Leclerc's crash at France. Now, he wasn't leading the championship, but was very similar. We said it last week, was very similar to the Vettel's crash when he was at Ferrari in 2018. And that was the downfall of that season. Strategy last 2 weeks haven't been good. Mercedes coming back. Red Bull's still going to be strong. Let's see what we have in the second stint. It's a little shorter. I think you only have 9 races. It's a little shorter second half than the first.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, you're going to some tracks we haven't gone to in a little while. Singapore, Japan, Belgium, we really didn't race if you count last year as a race. There's a lot to look forward to there.
It really is.
Yeah, so anything else in Hungary that stuck out? I just really enjoyed the race.
To be honest, not really. Like
You
you just said,
covered.
I enjoyed it. The race. If you watch the race, like if you're watching the podcast and you watch the race, then it kind of speaks for itself. Just watch it and you'll know everything. You'll get up to speed pretty quickly. So, yeah, I don't think really anything else. I'm excited to do the race rating though, because I remember
What's next?
last week I gave it was it a 3.75? No,
No, you did a
3.25, right?
no, you did a I think you did a 3.8. Because then
Did I?
D'Angelo did what'd you do, a 3.6, and I did that in between.
Yeah,
I
it was
did
like a
three.
3.6, I think.
So I did a 3.7. I think you had a 3.8. But yeah,
Right.
yeah, I mean, go ahead, kick it off. Let's see what the race rating is for the 2022 Hungary GP.
All right. So the rating I'm going to give for the race today, I'm going to go off on a limb and I'm going to give it a 4.75.
Wow, that
I
one's up there.
thought it had a lot of stuff. I mean, we don't really have a lot of those races, the rain races that really give, Turkey 2020, Brazil 2017 or 2019, whatever that race was. Those pretty epic races. Those I would give 5 out of 5s. But today I'm going to give it a 4.7. 4.7. It was a really solid race. I enjoyed it thoroughly from lap 1 all the way to the very end. Shame we had the VSC the final 2 laps, but obviously it was a safety thing. And yeah, there was, everything you could ask for in a dry Hungarian Grand Prix. Hungary is known for not really giving a lot of exciting races. It's pretty much follow the leader, as we've seen in past years, and the gaps are very, very spread out. But today it was like a very entertaining race. Lots of passing, lots of battling, tires. So, yep, there's my rating.
Nice, D'Angelo. What would your rating be, or and your kind of reasoning on that rating?
I'd probably say like a
Do you?
4.1 or 4.2, mainly because for Hungary it was a great race, and that's kind of how I was going in. Depend with the new regs and everything, I felt like this race would have been better, and it really was. There was a lot more overtaking than there has been in past years, so felt like my expectations were met with this, and it could have. I feel like it could have been a little bit better if Ferrari had actually challenged without their stupid strategy debacle, but other than that, it was pretty good.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree more with D'Angelo here. My official rating here, race review rating. I'm gonna give it a 4.2. It was a really good race. I think I would have liked to seen it stick out a little bit more as far as the lead, actually seeing, like D'Angelo said, if Leclerc's strategy didn't fall through, what would the race look like? I think it was pretty evident about maybe, halfway through, once that strategy, maybe a little past halfway. Once Verstappen got control, it was pretty much his race, and he controlled it from there. And Hamilton was kind of coming in at the end, but you need about maybe 2 extra laps and a little bit of rain to maybe make it something, but it really wasn't going to be there. Apart from that, I really enjoyed it. You did have a VSC, no wrecks. Not saying you need a wreck. No safety cars. I'm not saying you need one either. The gaps were pretty good. You had some good racing all throughout. But that'd be my one complaint not complaint, but for a higher rating, is just to get that strategy very close, way up until the last lap, whereas that guy in second still has an opportunity. But I think seeing all those drivers in there, I think the first half of the race, you really didn't know who could win. There was glimpses of, it could be Russell, it could be Leclerc or Sainz. Hamilton had some moments, Verstappen had some moments. It was like, that's what you want. You don't want the pole sitter to go out and lead the race and then just win it, and it was pretty much slam dunk. So I think in that regard, it's really good. Coming back from summer break, I'm looking forward to it. And yeah, I just want it to be a good show. So however it happens, is what I say.
I concur.
Absolutely. So I think that's going to do it for this episode of the Racing Debrief. It did land on a race Grand Prix weekend. Next few weeks, since Formula One is off, we will have some other topics. We might have a few guests on. If anyone has any ideas, if you would like to be on an episode, leave it in the comments, or let us know on the Discord. If you are new to TCR and you don't know anything about us, we're about to start our 14th season in TCR League Racing on PlayStation, August 16th through August 18th. Encourage you to follow us on all social media platforms, and definitely join the Discord, where we're the most active. And yeah, get some more information. You can visit the website, sign up. Sign-ups are still open, and keep up to date with everything TCR. Although that is episode 4 of the Racing Debrief, and until next week, thanks D'Angelo and Professional and everyone listening. Thank you for listening.